Let's get started. Game one of this live stream, Patron game analysis live stream Mario, and you played against Alexander Landerman, who I know myself. Did I ever play against him? No, I've never played against him, but he's a strong grandmaster from the US. He's rated about 2600 ELO, so a very strong player, and he did quite well in the recent World Cup in Georgia. Beat world-class man Pavel Yanov 2-0, and I also saw him perform at the Isle of Man. He put up a really stellar performance there. So you play with the white pieces against him. Was the English. So this is a fairly normal opening, but this is the first point where I would like to say something. G3, of course, is one of the main lines here, but personally I think you can pose much bigger problems to your opponent by going for E3 here. I've also played this line of black and still play it sometimes, and I think E3 is much more unpleasant for black to face. He has different choices here for sure, and you have to look at E5. You also have to look at bishop G7, but then bishop G7 just D4, D5, and you get like a King's Indian structure kind of. I think it's nice for white. And then also the main move what I play, and also what I recommend in my video series on Chess24 is Knight F6. But now we get this kind of structure. Takes, D5, and it's kind of a Panov attack from the Caro-Kann. And this offers, I think, white good chances to play for an advantage without many risks. So you might want to look into this, because I think it's a better try to fight for an advantage for white than G3. Because here black has several attractive setups. What your opponent did is fine. Also what I like to play here is E6, Knight G7 with black. And I don't see any problem for black there. It's very simple to play, and I don't see any difficulties really. So that's just an opening tip for you here. T6, castle, E5, D3, Knight G7. So far, this is all has been standard. Now you're playing bishop D2. The main plan, and you also know that because you played it a little bit later, is to go with A3 and rook B1. And I think you don't need to spend any time on bishop D2 right now. You can develop this bishop later. So the main move by far is to play A3 immediately, castle, rook B1. Now white is threatening B4, so black stops it by going A5. And here the main move is Knight E1, but with the goal to bring the knight to E3, but white is just not in time. If white was able to play Knight E3 and stop black from going D5, he would take control of the D5 square and enjoy a comfortable advantage, I think, or at least be a little bit better, but black is just in time to play D5, and I think if anybody's more comfortable here, it is black, because we get this kind of Maroczy structure with reverse colors. It looks like Sicilian now, but reverse colors. Black has more space, has a good bind on the center. I think this is more comfortable for black already, even though it might be about equal. So instead of this plan with Knight E1 here, maybe just now play bishop D2. Sometimes the idea is to then go Knight D5, then go B4, maybe you can put the knight on B5. But in general, I think the black setup is very sound, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the black position. I think it's just about balance, and it's not really the most promising try to play for an advantage with black. Sorry, with white, of course. Let me check the chat real quick. All right, let's keep going. Castle, E3. And I was surprised to see this move. And okay, this will sound maybe a little bit harsh, but from what I can see from your moves here is that you don't really are familiar with this kind of position, and you don't really know what you're doing. E3 doesn't fit in really at all. E3 would only make sense if you want to play D4, but obviously you cannot play D4 here. There's no way for you to play D4, and otherwise I don't see any purpose for this move. You don't need to stop Knight D4, it's not a threat. You could just take and then play Knight D5 or whatever. I mean, black's not going to play Knight D4 here. So there's no need for E3, it's just weakening your position. It's not giving you any benefits, at least as far as I can see. So You put in here a game by Wang against Robson, which went queen c1, which kind of makes sense, right? Bishop d2 followed by queen c1 is another typical plan to exchange this bishop on g7. So that would be another way to continue. Or you could go back to this other plan with a3 and rook b1. But I think e3 doesn't make much sense here. e3, f5, now you go rook b1, all right? h6, and now you go knight d5, which is interesting. But already it feels like position is more comfortable for black, because those moves bishop d2 and e3, they were kind of not doing anything in the direction of the queenside plan of a3 and b4. All right, knight d5, a5, queen b3, and you put here that knight e1 was a better move. Yeah, knight e1, but still, I already like black a little bit better here for sure. All right, let's see it again. Queen b3, knight takes d5, takes, knight b4, bishop takes, it's all necessary. And a3, I like this move to open up the queen side and get play there. It's a good move, I like a3. Takes, takes. Okay, here your opponent missed a chance to be significantly better with rook a5. He played queen a5. But here you had a good chance to get active play. You played rook fd1, a move I honestly don't understand. Okay, I didn't play the game. Probably, of course there was a point behind it. Maybe you can tell me in the chat if you want to. But what an interesting alternative was the move queen b6 and going after this weak move, weak pawn on d6, and kind of tying black to the defense of this pawn. Here it's really difficult for black to prove any advantage if he has any to begin with. For example, I mean, one possible line would be takes, takes, and now if rook d8 you can bring another piece to attack the pawn, and black really doesn't want to lose this pawn, because if he loses this pawn and suddenly the d5 pawn can become very strong, the bishop might suddenly awaken again and white is having good chances. So if rook takes a3 here, yes, black is picking up this pawn on d3 as well. He's a pawn up at the moment, but now white has a passed pawn on the d file. The knight is strong. You can pick up another pawn probably on b7, and white is by no means worse. So that doesn't promise black anything. If he doesn't play rook takes a3, the knight is coming to c4. Why should you have any problems here, right? So this is just completely fine for white. And if black, instead of going rook d8, goes rook takes a3 immediately, same story, rook takes d6, rook takes d3, and here you can go, in fact, after the weak king side with knight h4. It's a nice move going after this pawn. And once again, white is having great play and is doing fine here. By the way, you couldn't take this pawn really immediately because black can take on d5 and ignore any kind of discovered attack here. So actually what I looked at was the best choice for black would be f4, which is already a difficult move to play. And black has to do some calculation because now, of course, the pawn on d6 is en prise. But white shouldn't take because rook a6, and the queen is in a little bit of trouble. After queen e7 would be trapped immediately. Queen doesn't have any squares left. And after queen b8, which is the only other square, then there's bishop f5, attacking the queen once again. Queen moves and bishop takes d3, picking up an exchange. So it would be better for black. But white can improve on that and take on f4 first. And now, in fact, black should exchange queens, because if he takes the pawn now white can take, and the difference is that after rook a6, white has queen e7, and the queen is no longer trapped after bishop f6 because the queen can come back along the e file, for example e4, e2, something like that, and white is up a pawn. So instead of e takes f4 here, Black should take on b6, rook takes, now e takes f4, rook takes d6 and g5. And this is a little bit of a different situation than what we saw earlier, where white won the pawn when black still had the pawn on e5 and f5 and so on. Because here the bishops really come to life, and especially this bishop on g7, which doesn't have a counterpart, is quite strong, but nonetheless white is having excellent chance to equalize here. So this is close to equality. Maybe black's a little bit better, but this is completely playable, of course. So I'm not sure what you didn't like about queen b6 here, because it is an active move, attacking something, and looks quite attractive, to be honest. Also, if queen b6, rook d8, let's say, you could still play knight d2, of course, because black cannot take, because then the rook would be hanging. So queen b6 followed by knight d2 just looks quite strong. Alright, so rook fd1. Alright, Mario, I'm reading your comments in the chat right now, and you said you consider queen c1 instead of e3. Yeah, that would have been a more consistent follow-up to play possibly bishop h6. And then you're saying you played rook fd1 to play knight d2. Okay, this makes a lot of sense. Rook fd1 to prepare knight d2, I can understand that, yeah, of course. That's a good idea, yeah. Even though, like I just pointed out, queen b6 is stronger. Now queen takes a3, knight d2, queen a5, knight c4, queen has to come back, and now you play queen b6. And these moves you played, I think, good chess. Queen b6 is very possible. Another move I looked at and also liked was rook a1. The point is that black is really kind of struggling here on the queen side. He doesn't want to give up the a file, but he has to. I mean, he can either play rook b8, but now queen b6, takes, put the other rook on b1, and you have excellent compensation for the pawn. I mean, I would prefer white here. It's not clear how black will get any like active play. I mean, he's not worse, but it seems easier to play for white for sure. And after rook a1, if black takes, then suddenly you might even bring the rook to a8, and again you have ideas like queen b6 and going after this pawn, and it looks also like you have good compensation. So that was another option, but I think queen b6. The only problem is that now black has this move, right? So maybe rook a1 was a little bit better, and this is about prophylactic thinking and thinking about the response of the opponent. Of course, he's not going to take on b6, but he'll play something better, rook a6, and that allows him to defend the pawn from the side, which is usually what you want to do with rooks. Rooks rather like to defend pawns from the side and from behind, because it allows the rooks to be more active. All right, rook b3, nice move. e4. Yeah, here your opponent actually went astray. D takes e4, rook a4, knight b6. That was just not a good continuation you chose. And here I can understand, of course, you want to simplify matters further, right? You saw, okay, I can go into opposite colored bishops, into an endgame of opposite colored bishops, and probably very good chance to draw, and you're absolutely right with that. But what you didn't realize is that you're already better here. And that's okay, that's very common, right? For one, you were kind of worse before, you were down a pawn, and also you're playing against a much stronger opponent, a strong grandmaster. So we automatically kind of are in this defensive mode where we're like, oh yeah, a draw would be a great result, but you always have to keep your mind open and realize that you can also beat these guys. You just saw how he went from a clearly better position to now being worse. He's also just a human and he makes mistakes, and these guys can also be beaten, of course. So here a good chance to play bishop h3, pinning the pawn, and indeed it looks uncomfortable for black because he's going to lose his pawn on f5, right? You're just waiting one more move until you take on c8. There's no rush to take on c8, right? And you give, let's see the variation, you give here bishop d7, knight takes, rook takes, e takes f5. And yes, now we have opposite colored bishops. And of course, black has strong chances, but I mean, white has a lot of pawns. A lot of pawns. I think this is just very good chances, and it's only one step playing for win, obviously. So that was an excellent chance. So you might have taken on c8 too quickly, and you also told me that you were in time trouble here already, so that could have probably influenced your decision, which is of course another topic. You shouldn't be in time trouble that early in the game, but it's again another thing when we play against strong players, we tend to be slower because we double check and we don't want to run into any traps by our opponent and so on. So it's very natural, but of course it's not desirable. So this bishop h3 is maybe also about a little bit about candidate moves, right? Just looking everywhere, but also maybe realizing there's no rush to take on c8. Why take on c8? Give black the open c file when you can first do something else, right? So let's move on and see the game. But first I'll check again on the clock. I'll check again on the chat. And Mario is saying I had only 6 minutes on my clock and I missed bishop h3 yet. What I just said, that's what I thought. I mean, bishop h3 you can easily miss. But yeah, it's about, like I said, candidate moves. Just looking everywhere, how can I attack stuff? It's usually a good guide to find those moves. How can I attack something? And then bishop h3 comes to mind. Going after this f5 pawn and pinning this f5 pawn. All right, so let's see the game. Knight takes, rook takes, takes, takes. And here you're making, unfortunately, a decisive mistake. You're doing completely fine here. Doing completely fine, but now you play the move after which you're lost. Okay, we look at the position. The pawns are equal, though you have the much better pawn structure, right? Your pawns are all connected and black's pawns are all isolated. But what black has going for him is his far advanced passed pawn on the b file. This is black's only trump here. So you need to realize you need to deal with this. If you can stop this pawn and neutralize it, black will not have any advantage at all. So the most natural move to me, okay, bishop h3 is also possible as you point out, but the most natural move, which would be played probably by most players very quickly, is rook b1. Not allowing the pawn go forward to b3 and b2 where it's protected by the bishop. Just playing rook b1. And black has to go bishop c3 here. If he goes rook c4, he cannot protect the f5 pawn. You go after the f5 pawn and you're better. So he has to go bishop c3. And now you can already see, how is black going to make progress? He isn't, right? I mean, not for now at least. He cannot play b3, and he has also a very hard time to prepare b3. He would need to play something like rook a8, rook a3 or something like that. But now he can actually tie black down to the defense of this pawn. Play bishop h3, bishop rook f8 is forced, otherwise he loses his pawn. And now king g2, king g7, king f3. And here you can actually force a draw pretty much. King f4. And why is it a draw? Well, black cannot make any progress, right? He has to keep this pawn defended. he can push the king away, but then he has to come back right back to defend his pawn again. And what else can he do here? You can just wait. I don't know, let's say rook b3. The rook has to defend his pawn. You can just wait, and nothing black can do. So that would have been a draw. So e4, maybe you only considered black taking on e4 and thought, okay, well then I'm gonna get my bishop to a diagonal, but still, why allow the pawn to reach b2? It's dangerously close to queening on b2, obviously, so there's no need to allow that. So really about just thinking about the threats of the opponent and then stopping them. I mean, it's all about prophylactic thinking. Just, okay, he wants to go b3, how do I stop that? Rook b1, and then you play this move. It's really just that. So yeah, very unfortunate, because yeah, after b3 you don't get another chance. You can put the bishop on e4, but the pawn is just too far advanced, and after rook c1, unfortunately, it's game over because black will just play bishop b1, b1 queen, and here you resigned. Still, we have to say though, you put up a good fight against this very strong player, and you almost hold him to draw, and that's also quite an accomplishment. Even though the opening didn't go well for you, you were worse. You fought back and got the initiative, got great compensation for the pawn, and then you were even better. You were even better, and then had great drawing chance, but just this one move, e4, unfortunately ruined it all. But that's just what chess is, you know. You make one bad move, and then it all goes to hell, so to say. But still, I think you can be proud of yourself. You really put up a good fight and almost had him there, at least for a draw. I mean, if you play rook b1, really, I mean, there's not much he can do. I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised. So I think what happened here was time management for one. I think that also ultimately led to this decisive mistake of e4. So you need to improve your time management, which I think can be done. I mean, there are many ways to do this, right? One trick you could do, which helped me in the past, is after every move to write down your own time. Why does it help? During a game, you're more aware of your time spending, and you automatically play quicker because you know you're writing down your time. You're always like having a focus on it, and you have a focus on not getting into time trouble. And then also after the game, you can kind of check where did you spend too much time. And then if you spend too much time in the opening, you know, okay, I need to work on my openings. Then also my time management will improve. Or if you spend too much time in a tactical position because you were calculating and you maybe were calculating too slowly, then you know, okay, I need to improve my calculation skills. So that's just a helpful kind of technique to do, and then you can see what areas you need to work on, because time management can result from so many things. Also, like I said, could be a little bit psychologically because you were playing against a strong player and you were taking more time than you usually do. I don't know if you often get into time trouble, only you know that. So yeah, mix of time management, and then also of course the opening phase. Like I said, it seemed to me that you weren't really familiar with the position, with the plans, and I would recommend you to look into this move 4e3 against the setup, because I think it's there's much more venom to it. Okay, I'll check the chat once again to see if you have any comments. And yeah, exactly what you were saying. Sometimes we tend to underestimate our position when we play against a much stronger player. Yes, of course, I know myself. We're intimidated, we're having respect, and respect is fine, but we still need to play like we would against anybody else, right? It's difficult, of course, but it's just in our mind. We shouldn't care about who we're playing. We should just always try to play the best moves and just do it, right? And then, of course, thank you for your nice words. and of course I hope that this was helpful for you, and let me know if you have any more questions, Mario.